Disney Plus brings together fans of all ages. This podcast brings three adults who are also kids at heart together to talk about Disney Plus. Join Scott, the Magic Genie producer, Regina, the sassy Megara of the group, and Nathan, the gentle but grumpy Brit, as they bring you news, reviews, special guests, and discussions on the Disney Plus Streamcast.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Disney Plus Streamcast. I'm Scott Murray, and I'm here with Regina Davis.
Hello.
So have you noticed that the Disney parks here are beginning to make plans to open up?
I did. I'm anxiously awaiting reports, some early reports on how that goes.
Apparently they're not having any big issues at their competitor park over there at Universal, which I think opened up officially last week to, I guess, pass holders, season pass holders. And it showed people standing in line, you know, where you walk out there onto the city walk, and they were taking temperatures and stuff pretty quick and moving things along. And in general, from what I saw, people thought they felt pretty safe. We read today that the trickier part for people that are going right when it opens up, Disney just recently released the number of, or which hotels are actually going to be open. But I think on one hand, just because you're at a resort doesn't guarantee that you will get into the park. And two, right now with the way things are, and this kind of makes sense, they're not doing park hoppers.
Right. Yeah, that's the safest way to do it.
Yeah. So I guess that means, and to me, what would make sense is you could still buy tickets to all three parks for the same price. You just can't hop, you know, because you're not going to be able to, I don't think you're going to be able to get on things like the monorail and stuff anyway. So this is something you would have to do anyway. You would have to physically get back to your car and drive to the next one, or get on. I guess they're going to do some public transportation. They're not going to do the minivans. That's what we did last time, and that was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah. They're going to have to do something, though. But it's definitely going to be functioning differently for a while.
I'm watching it really close because I'd like to go in October. So I'd like to see kind of where things are in September. Everything could be totally different by then, or a lot less limited. So
that's such a good time of year.
Yeah, and it won't be 110.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't even care about the Halloween festivities, because there are way extra festivities, and it's super fun, but I would go there just for the temperature dip.
Yeah. I mean, if you live in a hot climate right now and you've had to wear your, you know, whatever mask you're using, unless it's, I actually saw at Walmart the other day, they had one of those coverings that go from your face all the way down to your neck, and it actually is made out of a cool material. And I didn't have a chance to look at it really closely, but it reminded me of, because it talked about activating it. It reminded me of the last time
sorry?
Yeah, activating it. Because one of the last times we were there in really hot weather was when Star Wars Celebration was there in Orlando a few years ago. And it was in August, I think. So we knew it was going to be hot, or it was in the summer. And we wanted to be prepared. And we found these things at Target that were like little rags. And what you did was you would walk up to like a water fountain and just water it down, and then you would snap it. Like you'd pull it apart really fast and almost snap it into action, and it would cool the entire thing. It would become instantly cold, and then you would put that around your neck, and it worked wonders. And I'm wondering if this thing that I saw today is made out of the same material.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And, you know, if it started to kind of get warm again, then you just walk up to a water fountain and re-water it and snap it again, and off you go.
Yeah. I mean, the heat is uncomfortable, but what I need to fix for is the fact that I have to wear glasses, and I'm constantly fogging up my own glasses.
Yeah. I need to see if I can track it down. I saw someone the other day. I didn't read the article, but I probably should have, because I've been dealing with some of this. It was in the context of how you can wear your mask and not fog up your sunglasses. So I have to think if I can track that down, that would also apply to regular glasses, because the principle is still the same. I imagine,
yeah. I would hope so.
Okay, well, we had to take a week off last week, but we are back with our promised topic later on in the show, which is we finally got around to watching something, and we all kind of picked what it was going to be. It was a movie that we hadn't seen, and our friends and our family just were stunned that we had never seen it before. So I'm looking forward to finding out what that was for you and what that was for Nathan, who we now have to talk to because we have to get news, which means it's what time, Regina?
It's time for News with Nathan.
Hello, Scott. Hello, Regina. You're absolutely right. You have to talk to me. It's contractually obliged, and I'm very glad of it. I get very limited social interaction being here in the lava pits of Mustafar. Not really, it's my house, but as we've said before, I think off air, I have no AC, so it's warm in here. I'm just excited to see you guys and talk to you guys because it certainly takes my mind off the sweating, the copious sweating. Getting
maybe
into
on Mustafar, but you need to be thinking about Hoth.
Oh man, see, I'm dreaming of a white Hoth mess. Very true. You were saying about parks getting ready to reopen, that sort of thing. Certainly, it's been all over the news. A bunch of the Disney resorts, as you said, Scott. I think nearly all the vacation properties, except for one of the Animal Kingdom ones, reopens on the 22nd. Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom looking to open on July 11th, and Epcot and Hollywood Studios on July 15th. If you go to any of the Orlando newspaper websites, if you go to any of the park sites, there's a whole kind of what's going on and what you have to do and what you can't do and what you should expect. Like you said, people who will want to attend the park, you have to have a reservation and a valid pass. No park hoppers. If you want to go to the hotels, you have to have a dining reservation or you have to have a room stay already booked. You can't just wander around and check out the lobby and all the different decor and things like that, which apparently is something that Disney fans love to do. They've also restricted a number of the activities. So whether it's character experiences, things like pin swapping, fireworks shows, parades, something which, this is something which perhaps speaks more to me than it does others, not being so au fait with some of this stuff. But I was reading about the different cleaning protocols that they're having with the housekeeping and things like that, where they said we're going to clean the housekeeping tools between rooms and we're going to steam clean floors between guests and we're going to vacuum all your different glassware and extra linens be kept in single-use, individually wrapped packaging, and pillows will be double-cased, and your room will receive a light cleaning every other day. The fact that Disney has to say that, and the fact that I don't stay in a lot of hotels, makes me think that when I got, well, shall we say, decamped temporarily from my abode after I split from my ex and had to go live in the Red Roof Inn for a little bit, makes me think they don't do that there. So I'm kind of glad that Disney is doing it here. And, if you've got your Disney thing going on and you've got a jonesing and an itch you just can't scratch by watching Disney Plus like the rest of us, then certainly from next month you'll be able to enjoy in a limited capacity all that you love so much.
The other thing I heard, too, is if you want photos with characters or whatnot, you are going to have to take that photo with their photo service. Taking it with cell phones and stuff is not going to be an option anymore, which I think a lot of that has to do with generally when you do that, you hand your phone to another person who takes it. So I think for a while, the only photo ops you're going to have are going to be photo ops that they're actually handling themselves in the park that you go and pick up at the end of the day.
Yeah, plus it kind of magnetizes everyone together to wait their turn surrounding the character. Yeah, that just seems like a mess. That's smart.
Yeah, certainly the social distancing in Disney Springs has been going well. People have reported that they've got a really good handle on that, although the crowds haven't quite been the same. Apparently they've been deploying stormtroopers from balconies and having pre-recorded dialogue saying, you in the mask, stay in your sector and things like that. So that's kind of cool. I feel like any of that they can work into your park experience. I mean, that's not an issue at that point. That's not a challenge. That's a feature, and that's something that's maybe exclusive to, pandemic Disney that you wouldn't get to see again. So that would be cool to enjoy it just on those grounds. No word yet about whether Disneyland is going to reopen, although people are speculating it's going to be next month as California moves into sort of stage 3 of reopening. It's really, really such a big deal for Disney. last year, fiscal 2019, its parks, experiences, and products unit generated more than $26 billion in sales, and that accounts for about a third of the company's revenue. It's no surprise that whenever they close their parks, their stock dropped nearly $40 in one day until things start to climb back up with people hearing that, actually people are turning to Disney Plus and they're making a lot of money off that. So I know Disney's excited to get everyone back, albeit in a safe way, but Bob Chapek has already said it's baby steps. They're going to do it slowly but surely, and they're really going to take stock of everything that's going on to make sure that they can ensure that trust. They're really, really focusing on the trust factor that, they are going to look after those guests when they're in the park. So that's a good thing. Let's go on and talk about some Disney Plus news. Diary of a Future President is getting a second season. Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
I knew you were going to say something like that.
I mean, I don't know that we loved it. I don't know that I loved it. You might have liked it. I'm not going back for more, but there's
we admitted it wasn't for us. And who it was for, it was great for.
Absolutely. There you go. Thank you for saying words that I could not bring myself to say. Something that we were there for was The Mandalorian, and Jon Favreau confirmed that season 2 comes out in October, having finished photography before the lockdown. So that's good. We'll look forward to that. Other places getting Disney Plus, we've talked about India already having it, and we talked about Europe. Japan gets it on June 11th. It's going to cost 700 yen per month, the same content as we have here. They already have a Disney subscription service in Japan called Disney Deluxe that they run with one of the really big telecommunications providers over there. But I guess they're going to unify all that and just have the one service. So, people are super excited for that. In the UK and Ireland, Frozen 2 comes out 2 weeks ahead of schedule on Friday, 3rd of July. There's actually going to be a documentary. It's a Disney Plus original called Into the Unknown. That's a catchy title. Making Frozen 2. And that comes out on the 26th of this month. This is one that I didn't see coming, and I guess it's more in Scott's wheelhouse than it is in mine, being that, he follows the old hoops and all the rest of it. The NBA is going to resume the season at the ESPN Worldwide of Sports in Walt Disney World, that huge, I think, 200-acre campus, which is actually just a smidgen smaller than Scott's house. But apparently it can house all those teams. Yeah. They're all going to be staying at Coronado Springs. And they're going to, much in the same way, I guess, I think back in the day, WCW Worldwide or Nitro used to perform at Center Stage down there, and they used to kind of like run their shows. The NBA will be down there. They haven't announced who's going to be allowed in. Yeah, I guess that's the thing. They're going to have this big campus, and all the players are going to stay on site with daily COVID testing, and they're going to finish out the season.
Well, they're going to finish out the season with 22 teams.
So is that because they're already out of contention, or they declined to participate?
This is what's so awesome about this for me. I can't remember the number. You had, in the NBA, in the playoffs, the top 8 teams from each conference go to the playoffs.
Okay.
So what they've done is there's going to be, I think, 13 teams, from the Western Conference and 9 teams from the Eastern Conference, I think is how this is going to work. And I think the way that you had to make it into the bubble was you had to be a certain amount of games out of that spot. And so, if you were more than that, you just weren't going to be invited, because they're only going to play 8 regular season games. You have 8 games to try to get into that top 8 if you're not already there. And if by the time those 8 games are done, if you are within striking distance of that 8th spot, and I guess you're in 9th place, you will get to have, I think, a double elimination playoff to try to take it. And what's interesting for me is, I think we all remember, you two were laughing when I told you the first thing I liked about Noelle was a character in that show was wearing Phoenix Suns gear.
Right.
So I've been a Suns fan for 30 years. And the Suns, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, used to have, I think, the record for the most consecutive playoff appearances of any NBA team. They've reversed that in the last decade. And they just started to kind of sort of right the ship. However, things were kind of falling apart late in the season with injuries and any number of things. Before COVID hit, they were, the odds of them making the playoffs were next to none. But because the moment when it ended, they weren't too far out, they are actually in this tournament. If the season had gone on its normal way, they probably wouldn't have made it in a million years. But now that they're in this group, it's kind of a Jim Carrey Dumb and Dumber thing. So you're telling me there's a chance because they're probably, in order to pull it off, they're going to have to probably win all 8, or they're going to probably have to play, or probably have to win 7 out of 8. The other interesting thing they're doing to make it easier is they're taking and looking at the teams that they would have gone ahead and played on their schedule, and they're just lining those teams up. So your next 8 games are who you would have played out of the group of people that are a group of teams that are coming. So it'll be really interesting to see out of those groups who has the harder schedule, considering these are all kind of sort of contenders for playoffs. But yeah, it's basically an 8-game tournament to get into the playoffs, and then the playoffs start. And I think they said the last game of the finals could be like mid-October, which is interesting to me because if I remember correctly, unless this has changed, they were hoping to start next season in December, and they still haven't had their draft yet.
Yeah, I don't know, man. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, as a Suns fan, I'm like, holy crap, I can actually, because I'm one of those people that, the only sport I really watch when my team isn't playing, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I will watch other teams play because I love the NFL. So I'm thrilled that we're getting football. When it comes to baseball and basketball, if my team's not doing worth a crap, I'm not paying much attention. So after having weeks and weeks of nothing, to think that here in just under 2 months, I'm going to jump in and watch the Suns play what could be considered meaningful basketball for the first time in years because of this situation. Yeah, I'm kind of digging it right now. Even if it's over in 2 weeks, at least it's something.
So here's the deal. I used to play basketball at school. It was not worthy of a position. It was just I was tall and I was chunky, and I guess my teacher didn't know anything about basketball except that the Lakers had a Shaq, and he was like, I need you to be our Shaq. They called me Vanilla Thunder. I used to hit people with the ball, and that's all it was, But I'm really terrible at basketball, and I never watch it. But it is sad to me that during these times, it's kind of apocalyptic. We've got the violence, we've got the pandemic and all the rest of it. I just wish they would have, because it's like a funny year for it, just made it a bit more Thunderdome. Just a bit more Bill Lambier's combat basketball, if you remember that oldie but goodie.
Yes.
NES Scott. Yeah, right. Just my take on it.
What do they call you?
If not now, when?
Vanilla Thunder.
All right, so from now on, it's news with Vanilla Thunder.
Yeah, someone once said that when I went to work at Borders Books, I was like their Sean Bradley, and I realized that wasn't a good thing.
Oh, no, yeah.
People said like, oh, yeah, he's like the mascot of the Mavs. And I'm like, oh, really? I had no idea. Just got off the plane, from England. He's like, oh, yeah, Sean Bradley. Yeah, he's top notch. Keeping the bench warm, I suppose. I don't know. But anyway, I've embraced my... my pale, clumsy self, and it's made me into the podcast legend I am today. So we'll just keep on rolling, I suppose. In Star Wars news, this is a sad one. Charles Lippincott, who was the film publicist that made A New Hope as big as it was, he passed away from a heart attack last week. He'd been living in Vermont. He was a really big film publicist. Like, he had done Westworld, he had done the last Hitchcock movie. He did Alien, Ridley Scott. He had done Flash Gordon. He did crazy work on Star Wars, though, that kind of, it changed the way that people publicized movie, like the way he did his promotional things. He did a partnership with the Richard Pryor Show, Donnie Marie. He was the guy who got CBS to do the Star Wars holiday special. Don't groan. You love it in its own special way, and you wouldn't have had that badass gun for Boba Fett had we not had the holiday special, or Chewie's kids, right? Or Chewie's family, I should say. He was the guy who brought Star Wars to San Diego Comic-Con and kind of made it a place to exhibit movies. He was the guy who did the Marvel Comics partnership and got people enthused about Star Wars before it even came out. As far as putting it in everyone's sort of mind that it was going to be this amazing thing and keeping the momentum going, the work he did on that, it kind of outlasted his actual tenure on the movie. He said that part of its success with Star Wars was the scarcity between the film and the toy line launches, because he said, instead of cajoling your mother into buying you a toy, you had to use your imagination and come up with your own toys. And the more you had to use your imagination, the more vested you are in the product. And yeah, there's lots and lots of remembrances from all different people in the Star Wars universe talking about the work he did on the movie and just how excited he was about it. So that's a shame that we lost him. Star Wars Galaxy Edge is getting a VR experience. It's going to be a partnership between Oculus and the ILM X Lab, which is the Lucasfilm group that just does all the immersive entertainment stuff. It's going to be set on Batuu, and it's set in between the events of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Why Bother. And you get to enjoy all sorts of stories on the edge of the Black Spire outpost, and it builds on the lore of that facility. That might be the thing that makes me break down and get into VR.
Dang, yeah.
You know, I just...
Either that or Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Is what is great as people talk about, or it's great as the talk is about Wing Commander and maybe Elite and those games for immersion and sucking you in. The ones that did it for me were like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I find that anytime someone does Star Wars with some, you know, they do it authentically, then I'm kind of into it. Like the Lippincott quote, I guess your mind just takes you there. The imagination takes over.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited for that one. And another couple of quick hits for us. If you go on James Cameron's Instagram this week, you'd see that he's touched down in New Zealand with his producer on the Avatar movie. They're about to restart shooting on that sequel and start production on that. So that's cool. That's been years and years and years in the making. Still scheduled to come out at the end of next year, though. So, you know, maybe. And if you can't get enough of your old Marvel and you've sort of run out of things to watch, don't forget, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is back on the telly. Premiered a couple of weeks ago to just under 2 million viewers, which apparently ABC are quite happy with, because 7 seasons in, they didn't really expect anyone to watch it who wasn't already watching it. But if you want to see more of Coulson, not quite Coulson, kind of Coulson-ish, just maybe, not you, Scott, we already know, but me and Regina, you know, you can tune into that on ABC on Wednesday nights. And guys, that's what I've got for you this week.
Good news.
Awesome.
And rest in peace, Charles Lippincott.
Yes.
Indeed.
All right. Well, we all have movies that our friends and family can't believe we haven't seen. Apparently, Disney Plus had some of those that fit our lists. And we've had a chance to watch one of those movies just in this past week. And we're ready to talk about them.
Mm-hmm. That's next on the Disney Plus Streamcast.
Okay, well, obviously one of the great advantages of streaming services, and perhaps new streaming services, is you have a chance to watch things you've never seen. A lot of times that might be something that's brand new, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about movies that perhaps have been around for a while, and if our friends and our family have asked us, have we seen it, and we say no, they can't believe it. They're just stunned. They're shocked. They may even want to disown us as friends or family, or, you know, or they just can't believe it. I have several of those movies. believe it or not. It's even in fandom that people can't believe I haven't seen, or maybe just got around to seeing in recent years. So the good news is we were all able to find one of those on all of our lists on Disney Plus. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I thought one way to do this would be to just kind of ask what the movie is, why you haven't seen it, and now that you have, what you thought about it. So let's start with Regina. Regina, what was the movie you decided to watch that you hadn't seen, but maybe it's friends or family couldn't believe you hadn't seen yet?
Most everyone I know had already seen this movie and they were so surprised I hadn't seen it that they weren't even angry. They were more just confused as to how I'd avoided it. Okay. Like, how have I just not seen it? And that is Moana. It's one of the, main Disney movies that people talk about now, and I just hadn't seen it. And I have zero reason for that. It's not that the story didn't interest me, because it seemed very cool, and anything that's sort of tropical and takes place that's ocean related, and I knew that there was going to be an amount of sailing, that's very much up my alley, cinematically. But for some reason, I just never pressed play, and I finally did, and I feel so dumb. It may just be because I'm just, I'm hot coming off of it right now. But it's one of my favorite Disney movies now. Wow. I really, really loved it. There was not any wasted time or space in Moana at all. And we all know how I feel about musical numbers and how Nathan often feels about musical numbers. My eyes did not roll one time.
Nice.
For any of them. It didn't feel out of place at all. And it was just genuinely really, really good music. It was absolutely stunning. The plot twist at the end, I don't know is it safe to say it? It's been 4 years.
Sure, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, I'm not going to say it then. There's a very beautifully done plot twist at the end. And it was just absolutely magnificent. And as far as, I know she's not technically a princess, but as far as Disney princesses go, she's up there with, some of my other two favorite Disney princesses, Mulan and Pocahontas, because they're not sort of just functioning on their own power. They're also sort of tapping into their culture and the, guidance of their ancestors. And I have always really, really loved ancestral stuff in stories. And it's just another one of those flawlessly executed stories. And I absolutely loved every second.
Nice. Nathan, have you seen it?
Yeah, and you know what, Scott? It's actually a pretty good one. The musical numbers are really solid in it.
Aren't they?
People draw a lot of attention, I guess, to the Dwayne Johnson, You're Welcome, which does have its moments. But whether it's like from the opening songs where, I think there's the one where Moana's talking about how she wants to go like far away, and the dudes on the island keep on hijacking the song and telling her like, oh no, but you're just going to stay on the island and you're going to hang out and it's going to be fine.
That's funny.
Then she's talking about like the sea and like, no, but you're going to stay here and it'll be like fish. It'll be great.
It's great. We've got coconuts.
Yeah, right. And Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords is in it as well. And he has a number which it's kind of David Bowie inspired. It sounds very much like their Bowie tribute, and it's called Shiny. And yeah, it's quite divine. If you
I had a huge smile on my face during that entire sequence.
Yeah, it's and the character is just like really awesome to look at as well. The big crab that he plays, name I've forgotten, starts with a T. Tamatoa. Is that right?
I think so.
I don't know. In any case, it's a really, really solid one. And I realized that Disney movies these days aren't traditional princess movies. There's always a lot of agency for the princess in those movies. And occasionally it might feel a little bit sort of obvious and a little bit awkward. It never, and I don't say that as an MRA dude. I'm just saying that sometimes, you get a vibe from it. From Moana, you don't. The whole thing just makes sense. It's steeped in mythology. It treats it so lovingly and so beautifully, and yet it still lets the character shine. And the songs just they really make it. You know, they really do. I really couldn't knock it at all. It's a great movie, Scott.
It's crazy. It's like one of the most perfectly executed Disney movies that I can think of. Yeah, you've got to watch it.
I will.
Yeah, I could watch it again right now. Like, I'm dead serious. That's how good it is.
Okay, Nathan, what was your movie?
All right, so, and this is a weird one because whenever you say things like, people can't believe you watched it, in my house...
People can't believe you haven't watched it.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But, you know, for my family, it sounds a little bit clickbaity, like a little bit BuzzFeedy or a Cinema Blend or something. This one elicited a, oh, you haven't? That was the reaction that I kind of got when I said it was this movie.
That's fair.
And I'll set the expectation. 20 years ago, when I was working as a merchandiser for what was at the time Britain's biggest record chain, Virgin Megastores, R.I.P. We miss you, Virgin Megastores. I was given a screener for a movie called Touching the Void, which was about two mountaineers that went into the Peruvian Andes, and somewhere along the line, they have a really big accident where they're trying to descend. One of them breaks their leg, and as they're trying to climb down, one guy just disappears. He's gone. But the rope is still taut, and the other climber has to make a decision. Do I try and hang on and hope he's still alive? I haven't seen him forever, though, and no one's touching the rope, or do I cut the rope and try and make my way down? And the whole movie is about that decision, and it's done like a documentary. It's a documentary. And the for the most part, with a few dramatized sequences, and the cinematography is spectacular because it's all these big like ice kind of glacier type things. I don't know the terminology. I'm not a mountaineer, but it looks amazing. Like all these like things like in the Andes and all this ice and these caverns and the snow. And I loved that movie. It was great. And so I was, I guess, intrigued when I saw like top ranking Nat Geo content on Disney Plus. There's a movie called Free Solo.
Mm-hmm.
And Free Solo, if you haven't heard about it or anything, and you know, I think I keep up with the movies, but I hadn't heard of it. It actually won an Oscar at the 91st Academy Awards, the best documentary. It's won a whole bunch of awards, and it's about a free climber called Alex Honnold, who climbs other stuff as well, but he excels in climbing things with just his fingers and his feet, and he does it quickly.
Oh.
And he wants to climb, I guess, the sheerest rock face that they have in Yosemite called El Capitan. And it's 3,200 feet. And it's not a linear 3,200 feet because you have to go down and around some bits where some of it is so messed up. And there's not enough, I guess, stuff to grip onto. And so basically, this movie sort of follows him when he's trying to, I don't know, I guess he really is trying to enable his dream. Like, he's always wanted to climb this. It's always been a thing for him. It's always been like the albatross, I guess. Like, there weren't other things to climb in the world, but this is the one that he really, really wanted. And I guess, I don't think anyone's ever done it before. And I think that was a thing for him as well. And so it depicts him and he's quite a funny old chap, really. If he was somewhere on the spectrum, you wouldn't be surprised. For the longest time, he lived in a converted van, and he just hung out there the whole time. And as part of his journey on the documentary, you see what happens when he finds sort of love, and he goes and buys a house and settles down, and all this stuff is kind of alien to him because, you know, he normally just has a cot. He has one burner that he cooks his food on in his van. He gives away a lot of his money to his charity that he does a lot of work for when he's not climbing. And otherwise, it's just him working out ways to climb and going over his climbing journal, which I didn't realize climbers did that. They journal all these different pitches, the different parts of their climbs.
Oh, wow.
And to see him go into it, and, you know, you get a sense of the danger. Like, it is palpable. The score is done by Marco Beltrami, so it's super tense the whole time because he's done a lot of like action and horror scores. You just really get a sense of not only the risk and the scope and the scale of what he's doing, but also just the technical excellence involved in filming that, because it's a bit meta in that it breaks that fourth wall, because part of the documentary is documenting the actual documentarians and how they're going to film him without getting in his way, because, you know, when you're like 2,000 feet up a sheer face and you're just hanging in, like they said, there's one bit where I think it's called the enduro climb. You're just hanging in with just your fingertips. It's all upper body. You can't use your feet. You're just crammed into a crevice and you're trying to pull your way up to your next hold. You've already been climbing for a couple of hours. You're exhausted. So the last thing you want to do is have some bloke with, you know, come down the side on a rope, shove a camera in your face and say, "You doing all right, Alex? Smile for the camera, mate." You know, you can't have that. So, you know, they have all these different like these telephoto lens type things. They have the drones. They have him wired for sound in such a way that I guess it's not obvious. I think they hide it like in his little chalk bag, the microphone. And, you know, everything is done to sort of minimize the weight, because it's just him and his shoes and his little chalk bag, and he's climbing up these crevices. And to see how they do it, like the actual climbers, and just it's beautiful. You would think it's kind of like a real abstract thing, like, you know, the psychology of climbing a mountain, but they just really get into his head so well. And just the moves, just to see the dynamism, the athleticism, and just that kind of that sheer will, the presence that, you know, he's obviously got, the awareness of his of everything that's going around him, just the control he has over his body and his fear. It's absolutely breathtaking, and I was just rapt watching it. It was absolutely stunning.
God, you make it sound so good, but it sounds so stressful to watch. Like, that's the type of stuff that, like, it physically affects me. I'll be there holding my breath till I turn purple, like, just out of sheer anxiety. I think the only time I've ever seen somebody try to climb El Capitan was when Captain Kirk did it in Star Trek V.
And that was the best part of that whole movie.
And it went horribly. Like, oh, man.
All right, why do you climb it? Because it's there, that bit. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's Boxer in his hover boots.
Yep. And he doesn't have anybody with hover boots in Free Solo.
That's
He's
the
just
other
doing
problem.
it.
Yeah, that's on Jen's list. She said several times we need to watch it, so I'm sure that's one we're going to be watching too.
Yeah, it's definite. 2 thumbs up.
The movie I'm watching is it was definitely the oldest of the group, because this came out in the 80s. And since I grew up at that time and I watch a lot of these type of movies, it shocked everybody, including my wife, who has seen it, that I had not seen Willow. So that was the movie I decided to watch. And we talked last time, I believe, about the way things are paced and the way things are edited back in the day. And I think Willow is most certainly a product of his time, from the standpoint of this really probably wasn't the ideal time for me to see it for the first time, but I could see why people would have loved it in the 80s. Although I will say this, my gosh, that movie's long. It really is long.
Is it? It blows by for me.
I mean, it's 2 hours.
126 minutes.
There you go. It's over 2 hours long. That movie should have ended when they had their big battle with that included the 2-headed monster. That's really would have been a good spot. I think about how Nathan was talking about a couple weeks ago, how he thought George of the Jungle could have ended, but no, then Lyle had to show up again and he's part of this cult and they drag it out. I felt the same way after that big battle. I felt I was ready for all the things to tie in. By that time, the girl who, you know, was working for the evil queen decided she had the hots for Val Kilmer and she was going to work with them. You know, that really would have been a good time. I realized you had to somehow defeat the queen, but the fact that we had to draw it out and then have them all turn into pigs and have a really long prep for this ceremony, whatever the ceremony was going to do by, you know, sending this kid to the netherworld, which I didn't really understand that either. I was like, why not just kill it? I don't understand why you have to send it to the netherworld in order for
magic, Scott.
So
the hell.
And even in that ending scene when they do the whole thing where the witch that was, you know, the bird and all the different animals at first, when her and Willow go up there to kind of distract the soldiers, almost like Monty Python, you know, is, you know, when they go up to the castle and the French are teasing them, it's that sort of thing. I was confused on multiple fronts here because I'm sitting here thinking, why couldn't they have done something to take the two of them out without having to open the drawbridge? And then the other thing I couldn't understand is how the whole army managed to hide in these holes right in front of the castle without them noticing. They come out of the drawbridge, and all of a sudden everybody pops up, and they've all been right in front of the castle, and it's like, if those guys have been guarding the castle and they know all these enemies are on the outside, how did they manage to all hide in these holes without anybody knowing that they were going to jump out and do something? That threw me for a loop as well. I mean, it had its moments. I liked watching Val Kilmer. I liked watching Warwick Davis. It was crazy seeing Kevin Pollak do this silly little role that he was in. And you had that character, can't remember his name, the soldier who Val Kilmer first comes across when he's in the cage, and obviously they know each other, and he leaves him there, and then later on he helps him fight. I kept looking at that guy, and I kept going, his face looks familiar. Who is that? And I was like, holy crap, that's the guy that played Brad in Superman 3. So that was kind of interesting, because I don't think I've seen that guy in anything ever since Superman 3. I thought the villain was kind of meh. I didn't think she was really that compelling. I don't know. I just didn't feel threatened by her. She's not Jafar in real life Aladdin bad, but she's not that far off. And I thought it was a little anticlimactic that the way she was defeated was she tripped over something and fell into the netherworld after that big, long, drawn-out battle we had with the other with the other witch. So, needless to say, I wasn't like blown away by it, but I can at least accept that I am watching something that is over 30 years old, that is limited by the technology, is written and directed in a way that was funny and amusing and entertaining back then. After COVID, they haven't really told us whether they still plan to do the Willow TV series that Ron Howard said they are doing for Disney Plus. I really hope they're going to still do that, because I think I would still be interested in it, because one thing about it is John Kasdan is writing that.
Indeed.
So I think that's a really good pick to do a TV series for it. So despite what I think of the movie, seeing it all these years later, I would be interested in seeing that TV series.
You know, it's a movie that I don't think is aged well. I remember it very, very fondly. You know, Mad Martigan, he's one of those awesome kind of anti-hero type dudes. Probably Kilmer at his finest for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, I would denounce and decry him as Batman. Top Gun was all Cruise.
We have Doc Holliday, and then, of course, his character of Nick, his very first film role in Top Secret is great.
I do remember that quite fondly when he's on stage putting his head in the oven, singing the love song and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a good one now I think about it. Yeah, you know, that movie was spoiled for me inadvertently because Pat Roach, who plays the general in that, and he's been a heavy in a bunch of different Lucas things. Like he was the bloke who fought Indiana Jones in Raiders, and then they brought him back as a German mechanic who gets pushed into the propeller blades of the plane. He's in a lot of his movies. He was a wrestler before he was an actor. His name was Bomber Pat Roach, and my dad took me to see him one time at the Bristol Colston Hall. And he doesn't do autographs because he's too famous. And so he ignores all the kids. And I can tell you that 8-year-old me was absolutely heartbroken. And once I realized that's who it was when I was older, I was like, whatever, Pat Roach. Yeah, stupid movie. So yeah, that's my anecdote about Willow. I enjoyed it at the time though, Scott. I'm sorry you didn't like it. It is kind of iconic as far as like fantasy goes. It has a lot of those tropes, you know?
Mm-hmm. It does. The other thing I want to mention, too, is James Horner did the music. And the late, great James Horner's done so many fantastic soundtracks. I'm usually not someone who gets heavily deep into soundtracks or even remembers them to the degree that a lot of people perhaps do. But James Horner's different. His work on Star Trek 2 and 3 are some of my favorite orchestral soundtrack pieces of all time. So it was really cool hearing him put his musical genius into this film. He did so many great movies and was a part of a lot of my favorite films. So I thought that was a nice touch too, that he's the one who did the soundtrack for the film.
Yeah, he does fantasy really well.
Well, that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Disney Plus Streamcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week to discuss A Dog's Life, the series about dogs on Disney Plus. We are on Twitter at Disney Plus Cast, also DisneyPlusStreamcast.com. On that website, you can see what's coming up on future shows and access all of the other shows that we've done so far. Of course, I'm sure many of you are listening through podcast platforms that allow you to subscribe and automatically get episodes each week. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a chance to leave a review or tell other people or other Disney fans about the podcast. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to having you back next week for another episode of the Disney Plus Streamcast.